Developing research from the Heritage Foundation shows the state of California is not only one of the biggest abortion hubs in the country, but it's also become a hub for what is known as commercial surrogacy. In short, foreigners, mainly Chinese foreigners, are renting American women and using their wombs to ensure their children are born on American soil. For a price, the Chinese are separating the procreative act from marriage, ensuring for themselves and their families the perks of being an American citizen without ever leaving China. Perks like access to education, a green card, and the ability to vote in American elections. Emma Waters, research associate at the Heritage Foundation's Richard and Helen DeVos Center, has been heading up this research, and she joins me now to explain more. Emma, thanks so much for joining me in studio today.
Thanks for having me on, Prudence.
So lay it out for me. Walk us through exactly how this commercial surrogacy program is being carried out.
Yeah, so it all started back in the day with birth tourism, where women, oftentimes from East Asian countries, would come over in the 8th month of pregnancy with the hopes of bearing their child here in the United States. Because with birthright citizenship, if you're born here, you get all the benefits of being a citizen, even if you don't grow up here and you're not actually American by any meaningful means.
Right.
So with the development of assisted reproductive technologies like IVF that allows you to create an embryo, right, with the sperm and the egg in a lab, and then with other processes that allow commercial surrogacy, where you then implant that embryo into a third woman's body for the in hopes that it will turn into a viable pregnancy. As this has developed, we've seen an expansion not just in our nation, but also within across the globe, really. So all of a sudden, for the first time, parents in China can send over their sperm, their egg, or an embryo, have it implanted in the womb of a woman in the United States, and then she can conceive and bear a child, all without the child's biological parents ever leaving China.
It's unbelievable. And when you take a minute to think about it, it really is so alarming. And Emma, this is happening in California now, but are other states opening up the door to this? Is there anyone opposing it? What do you think this is? How will this play out?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when it comes to commercial surrogacy and even most of our IVF laws, there are very few federal regulations governing it. And most of the time, they're only addressing very top-level concerns like consumer contracts, not the actual ethical processes that take place. So every state effectively decides for itself what its surrogacy laws will be, what its IVF laws will be. So you have states like New York, that's another major hub for international surrogacy agreements from China, from other East Asian nations, some from France. And then you also have Illinois, who's been one of the top players in this game, including their redefinition of infertility to include one's sexual preference. So a gay couple can be infertile simply because they can't conceive children, or a single person can be infertile because they have no partner to produce with. So we're seeing a lot of moves on the state level to address this.
Very interesting. And can you talk about how surrogacy harms women and children? You know, what the effects can be of a child being born via a surrogate as opposed to being born of their biological mother?
Yeah, this is a massive question, and this is where the distinction between we don't have studies that show the harms of this must be made. Because what happens is with informed consent, people think, oh, there are no studies showing negative outcomes for the surrogate, for the family, or for the child. Therefore, this must be a good thing, right? When in reality, we just don't have enough studies to actually tell us one way or the other the impact. We do know that children who are conceived via IVF are going to have much higher levels of autism, of Down syndrome, and of other minor abnormalities when they're born. And this is CDC reporting. And then when it comes to commercial surrogacy, we know these pregnancies are far more high risk, and that the impact it has on a child, taking them away from the only body that they've known and stripping them of that intimate connection to go to the hands of what may be their biological parents, but aren't necessarily biologically related, but strangers to the child, right? This has massive impacts on their emotional, cognitive development. And we've barely done the studies to actually see if this is good for the children we're creating.
Right. And we have about 30 seconds left. Are there any other details or important things that you'd like to add about all of this?
Yeah. In the midst of China using the wombs of American citizens, we also have Congress members introducing bills like the Right to Build Families Act of 2022 that would prohibit any limitations to IVF or commercial surrogacy laws in the United States, except for those governed by top-level health and safety regulations, which means all of the moral and ethical concerns that we've outlined in this interview would effectively be overruled by this congressional bill.
Very interesting. Well, thank you for shedding a light on all of this. Emma Waters of the Heritage Foundation, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on.